Hello everyone, welcome to another video on the channel, welcome to another Gran Turismo 7 opinion piece. Now it has been a wee while since we've done a video like this, but in this one we're going to discuss what in my opinion has gone wrong with Daily Race C. Now I think it'd be fair to say that Daily Race C is considered the flagship race amongst the daily races. It tends to be a little bit longer, tends to be maybe the more higher rated players that tend to enter it. The settings tend to be a little bit more difficult as well. But at the same time, I don't think Daily Race C in Gran Turismo 7 has lived up to its potential, and there's tended to be a few trends in there that have kind of made it a little bit boring, a little bit kind of, not so much repetitive, but yeah, there's definitely some grumblings amongst the community about how Daily Race C is unfolding week after week. And yeah, that's what we're going to discuss in this video. Now in the background, it's going to run from week 1 up to week 10, which is the current Daily Race C. I'll give you a little bit of footage of the races and the settings there, and I think you'll start to notice a few trends amongst those settings, what tends to be the biggest problem with Daily Race C at the moment. Now we did get off to a good start with Daily Race C. I think it'd be fair to say week 1 was at Daytona International Speedway, and it felt very fresh compared to what we had done in Gran Turismo Sport, because tuning was on for this one. The cars were restricted by weight and power. Now I think this was actually because Polyphony Digital had issues implementing the BOP system at this point, but it did actually give this race a big bit of freshness compared to what we just had in GT Sport. Obviously we're at Daytona International Speedway, which was a brand new track as well, but yeah, the new handling model, a new track, the tuning was different as well. This felt like a very fresh Daily Race C combination compared to what we'd had in GTS, and the future looked bright after this very first race, but it did start to go a little bit south even on week number 2 as we headed to Autopolis International Raceway. BOP was back, which was no bad thing. We're in the Group 4 cars, tyre wear was at ×2, fuel was at ×2, it was just the racing hard tyres that were available. And this one was of course just a very boring no-stop. The Mazda Atenza was absolutely dominating proceedings in Group 4 as well, so it very much became a one-make, boring no-stop race, which was unfortunate to say the least. Week 3 seen us going to Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. It was once again Group 3. BOP was on this time. Now tyre wear was up at ×15, fuel was at ×7. It was the racing hard tyres. This actually wasn't too bad a race at all. You had the option of doing the no-stop in cars that could kind of make the fuel last, like the RCZ and the Mazda RX Vision, or you could do the pit stop strategy. The pit stop wasn't too long, and yeah, you could then get a pair of fresh tyres on, and yeah, this one actually was probably, after Daytona, the next best Daily Race C that we've had in the first 10 weeks of the game. But things after this were pretty much to take a bit of a turn. Everything pretty much became a no-stop race. Some of them had a little bit of fuel saving in, and then it's going to culminate in weeks 9 and 10, where you're going to see we're down to tyre wear at ×1 and fuel at ×1. And everything is becoming a little bit boring, it has to be said. And as a bit of a Gran Turismo fanboy, I think you could guess, I know I'm a huge fan of Gran Turismo, and I'm really enjoying Gran Turismo 7 as well. But if a player like myself has been to say they're getting a little bit bored, and then after a couple of days of the new Daily Race C, I'm not really interested in playing it too much more, then I definitely think there is a little bit of an issue. Now those issues are pretty much that there is no strategy whatsoever in Daily Race C. After Daytona and then Brands Hatch, I don't think there's really been a Daily Race C that has incorporated some strategy, or definitely given you a viable strategy over and above the no-stop. Fuji International Speedway in week 8 maybe just about comes in there. We did have the soft and medium tyres available, but the no-stop strategy was still the superior way to go. And yeah, that's kind of becoming a bit of a recurring trend, and it is leading to the races becoming a little bit stagnant, a little bit boring. Over and above that, we also seem to be down to pretty much permanently 16 players. We did start off the game with 20 players, and then it's kind of fluctuated at times between 16 and 20, but definitely more recently settled on those 16 players, which again is a step back from Gran Turismo Sport, which is the last thing I expected to be saying. Now, I didn't expect Sport Mode to be massively different to Gran Turismo Sport, but yeah, I definitely didn't think the player count would go down, I have to say. That has probably been the biggest surprise of Gran Turismo 7. I do think that's something that will be rectified in the future. But at the moment, yeah, we seem to be stuck on 16 players in DRS-C, which, again, kind of, I mean, you think it's only 4 cars, why could it have such an impact? But it does, you know. Sometimes you're in a race and you have a bad race and you go, oh, I'm still going to get a top 10, and then you look up and a couple of players have retired and you realise there's actually only 13 players playing, and you're actually, you know, you are pretty much at the back of the field, but you're still in the top 10 because the player count is so low. So that, hopefully that is something that will get fixed in the near future. Definitely up to 20 players, and even 24 players would be very nice to see. I think everybody would agree on that one. Next on the agenda is the somewhat uneven balance of performance within the categories. Now, I don't think the BOP is quite as bad as people think or maybe make out. As somebody who does drive a lot of different cars in the races, it tends to be that it's not that the balance of performance is very unbalanced. It's basically there's just usually a couple of cars in each category that are just much better than the rest of the field. So for example, in Group 3, they appear to have the Beetle and the Subaru appear to be much better than every other car in the category. But if you drive the other cars in Group 3, you find that a lot of them are very, very even with each other. So really just a step back with the Subaru and the Beetle down towards the rest of the field. Could see Group 3 sorted out quite quickly. Group 4, they do need to do something about the 4-wheel drive cars to bring them back to the rest of the pack. Alternatively, and this has been said over and over and over and over and over again by many people, they probably just actually need to bite the bullet and divide the car categories up in Group 4 into several different categories. Probably the same for Group 3, same for Group 2 as well. But I don't think that's going to happen, is it? Because we've been kind of talking about this for years between Gran Turismo Sport and Gran Turismo 7, and there doesn't seem to be any progress in that. There is a slight glimmer of hope. Week 8 at Fuji, when it was the Group 2 car, they did just limit it to the GT500, so maybe, just maybe, there is something in there that they've noticed, and that could be something we might see in the future. But yeah, the biggest problem with the game ultimately is it feels very, very, very similar to Gran Turismo Sport in my opinion, and that's not really a problem with Gran Turismo 7 in itself. It tends to be a problem with the settings. The settings are all there to make Gran Turismo 7 and differentiate it quite differently from Gran Turismo Sport. I've not even mentioned the variable weather, you know, that doesn't seem to ever be introduced into a daily race. Now, we have seen a brief introduction of it within the Gran Turismo World Series, but in daily races they don't seem to be too keen to put that in, you know. And you could just set up the race to have completely random weather. One race could be wet, one race could be dry, one race could be wet, dry, one race could be dry, wet. It could all happen. It's all there. The game's got all the settings there to do it. And that is the good news about this video, is that it's not actually the game itself that's at fault. It's actually Polyphony Digital. It's whoever's in charge of making the daily races. Now, my personal opinion is that there must be somebody within the decision-making policy or the decision-making part of the daily races who is sticking to their guns, who's in charge of the ultimate decision, because there has to be people within that development team who want to mix things up, who want to give us longer races, who want to mix up the car categories, who want to use that variable weather they probably worked on for years within daily races. And so, as I said, the game itself is not the problem. Everything's there. The cars are there, the settings are there, the tracks are there. The big problem is somebody within that office in Japan who is basically decided that they want sport mode on Gran Turismo 7 to pretty much just be Gran Turismo Sport from Gran Turismo Sport. And until that kind of the roadblock, I guess, is removed, I'm not particularly hopeful that things are going to change, folks. But as I said, the good news is that the game itself does not have the issue. It is a settings issue. It's a human issue. The game there has everything that is required to just blow the doors off probably every other racing game if they really wanted to. If they put somebody, I mean, I'm not going to blow my own trumpet, but yeah, I reckon if I was in charge of daily races, I could pretty much end every other racing game. Now that's a pretty silly thing to say, let's be honest. But yeah, you know what I mean though. You could just do some sensational stuff with Gran Turismo 7 with the canvas of material, cars, track settings that you've got there. You only have to kind of look at the response from some of the other content creators out there after the Spa GTWS race. I think it was a manufacturer's race where we had the variable weather at Belgium. Every race was kind of unpredictable, a little bit different. Some people got fully wet races, some people got wet dry races, some people got dry wet races, some people got anything in between. You know, the reception from some of the other creators out there about that race just goes to show you the impact and the positivity that could be strewn about the game if they would only just use what is available to them. But as I said, there's a roadblock there somewhere. I don't know what it is. It's a baffling mystery to me, to be perfectly honest with you, why they would craft such a great game, you know, a great game with such potential, and then just use 10% of it in the daily races, and in particular daily race C. But yeah, that's my thoughts and opinions on this one. It's all there, you know, so I'm always going to be hopeful that it can change. But what's that roadblock? What is the roadblock? What is the stumbling point from making daily race C great again? That's all I've got to say, really. You know, make daily race C great again. Make daily race C even greater than it's ever been. It's all there. It's easy for them to do, but until that roadblock is removed, whatever it happens to be, I can't see things changing too much. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I'll catch you on the next one. Goodbye now.